So hello, everyone. We're so glad that you're here today. Yay. All right.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you all here. I'm Lindsay, and we are thrilled to be live streaming today where I'm in Vancouver, but I have with me two of the best and the brightest from the Lone Star State. I think it's funny I had to go all the way to Vancouver to get to see with you face to face. So we're excited about that. Today, we're going to be talking about global meeting industries, which is an opportunity for us to reflect on where we are today as event professionals, where we're going, and how we're going to grow forward. Some of our top leaders, and so we're going to have the ladies introduce themselves, both Tracey Smith and Cathy Breden. So let's get to it.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons. Presented by Endless Events. The show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Use the question panel on the webinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter. Submit your questions with #Event Icons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #Event Icons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons.
All right, so we're going to read it off. We have Tracey Smith joining us. She's a longtime meetings professional who has just now got the best job ever, so I can't wait to ask more questions about that. Leading the world's largest association of senior level meeting planners and events. Cathy Breden, CMP CAE, is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the International Association of Exhibitions and Events, where she has the responsibility of managing the day-to-day operations of the association, including overseeing marketing and communications, membership, education, conventions and events, and administration. In addition, she currently serves as the CEO for the Center for Exhibition Industry Research. You know, I never have actually seen it all written out like that. It's always CEIR, right?
That's right.
Whose primary purpose is to promote the growth, awareness, and value of exhibitions and other face-to-face marketing events by producing and delivering research-based knowledge tools. Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's exhausting.
No, I'm like, I want to learn how to write a bio like that. My gosh, I want both of you to come and train me. So Tracey, let's just start for a quick second. We have a couple of questions we always ask at the beginning of this. That gives us a little bit, what got you into the meetings industry? And if you weren't there, what would you be doing?
Oh, goodness. So I started out in marketing, working for a small software company in Dallas at the time. And they asked me to do trade shows. And I said, okay. So I learned all about trade shows and loved it. To me, it's like show business. But I wanted to do more. And then they came and said, oh, by the way, would you like to do a user conference? And I'm like, okay. So totally green. And thankfully some other professionals in the industry helped me along and walked me through it, and have just was bitten by the bug at that point and have been doing it ever since. So that was 28 years ago. And now as the executive director of SPIN, the Senior Planner Industry Network, my fabulous job is to be the voice for our organization of 2,500 senior level meeting planners who are scattered all across the U.S. and Canada. And almost half of them are independent meeting planners, and they have their own company. So they're struggling right now with various industry issues and trying to meet the demands of their clients, but then also try to run a business. So we're trying to do what we can to help them, either learn the techniques and skill sets that they need to operate a business, but also, just how to promote themselves better as meeting professionals.
Absolutely.
And what would I do if I weren't in the meetings industry? Oh my gosh. If I could do anything with dogs, that would be just ideal. So
that's very relaxing.
Yeah, something like that. So I thoroughly enjoyed that.
There's a whole joke there about how you didn't say if it had something to do with cats and the herding thereof. So I appreciate it.
Yes, I absolutely love that commercial several years ago.
How about you, Cathy? What got you into the industry?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm one of those odd people that actually graduated from college with a degree in business administration with an emphasis in association management. So I pretty much have always worked for associations with the exception of about 4 years of my entire career. And when I was with the New Jersey Academy of Family Physicians, when I accepted that position, I found out that I needed to run a trade show, and I had no idea what a trade show was at that point. Actually relied on my official service contractor at the time, to pretty much run it for me because I just didn't even know what I was doing. And that was, well over 20 years ago. And when I left that position, I was very fortunate. When we moved to Texas, my husband and I moved to Texas, and I was hired by IAEE to come on as their membership director at the time. But I was fortunate when I was in New Jersey that I did get my CMP designation, and so between that and my certified association executive designation, that kind of helped elevate me to different higher level positions within IAEE. I've been here, since 1995. I've raised my kids here. It's been a great place to raise a family just because of our work culture. And what IAEE does, we represent both business to business trade shows as well as consumer events. So if you think of something like the wine festivals or the bridal shows, things like that. But my primary focus is on B2B. That's what CEIR primarily focuses on in producing its research. And the CEIR Index report, which is something that I'm working on right now, it's been my total focus for the last several days, trying to get that ready and put to bed and out by the end of next week. And if I wasn't in the industry, I really would like to have the time to explore what that would be. I really have no idea what that might look like. Early on when I was young, I thought I would be a nurse. Obviously that didn't happen. I did work for a couple of medical associations, but never branched out into that medical field. But if there were something else, I would probably do something within the medical field.
I don't know. That almost feels like you're in the right industry. You actually graduated with a degree in there. I'm always the ones there's so many of us that found ourselves here. Don't you think, Tracey?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
The ones who really follow the path, especially coming through associations and events, I think that really brings an interesting perspective having both of you here to kind of talk a little bit about global, like what is Global Meetings Industry Day and how you got involved and how long has it been a thing and why is it important? So let's start with that. What is global? Don't everybody talk at once. It's definitely.
So Global Meetings Industry Day is a part of the Meetings Mean Business campaign that is administered by U.S. Travel. And they, back in 2009, I think it was, that they started Meetings Mean Business and launched Global Meeting Industry Day. And why is it important? It's because of the number of jobs that are created through meetings and all of the events that we produce. And the economic impact to the U.S. economy, which I think is $1.03 trillion to the U.S. economy alone. So, without the events that we all produce, there would be a lot fewer jobs within the United States. And so I think it's great for us all to get out and advocate on behalf of the industry that helps to support local communities and the business that's generated here in the U.S.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think hospitality is probably the number one profession, or that category, and it does provide a way for many people to move up and out from situations, and particularly around the world. The hospitality jobs, that's a sector that many people aspire to be in. So it's very important, and we have to coalesce, I think, to make sure that stays going forward.
So that's an interesting point because it's got the name global inside it. We're going to call it GMID. And that way we can just agree to not have to say it many times, right? So, but it has that in there, but it seems to be primarily at this point a US and Canadian movement. There's growth in other places to kind of take it and make this a worldwide movement, but it's not quite there yet. Was there a thinking behind?
I think there's quite a few events happening around the world. So I read something where it was, I can't remember the exact number, but there were quite a few. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on today or tomorrow.
Yeah. I was reading on the website where they were saying that there's more than 200, and it was fun because as I was watching the number, more events were like popping up on the geographic map. And then I got a press release that from the city of Toronto where they turned the whole city blue and had been talking a little bit about the campaign that is worth meeting about. So can you share with us a little bit about that and what is worth meeting about and how does it tie in to the overall industry day we're celebrating?
You're first, Tracey.
Go ahead. In my opinion, and having planned meetings for so many years, I think all meetings are educational. Whether it's a staff meeting or if it's a conference or if it's Apple introducing their latest technology, it's all educational. There's something to be learned from gathering. And I think that's a critical piece of any business that the employees know what's going on, the customers know what's going on, stockholders know what's going on. And so it is a critical piece to any business that they stay in touch with their constituents, basically. And so meetings are a way to get that done, and face-to-face is really and truly the best way to do that. Although sometimes, having technology so that we can talk, across the country or the continent is, a very nice way to be able to spread the word quickly and universally.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tracey. Business meetings and trade shows, because trade shows is what my area of expertise is. But, certainly looking at someone in their eyes and sitting down and having that face-to-face conversation, I think builds relationships much faster than what doing it over phone or even doing it, via Zoom conference. It's a great way to gauge who that person is and if that's someone that you want to do business with. So, I think that, Global Meetings Industry Day is a reflection of that, where there are so many different events that are being held where people come together and they meet face to face. So it drives those business relationships. It helps build friendships, that are lifelong, and it's not something that I think that can be replaced by technology. So, I think that, that those are some good reasons for why Global Meetings Industry Day and the Meetings Being Business campaign is so important.
So that's actually a really good point. We were having some conversations as we were preparing questions, and they were like, well, the technology industry is always talking about how they're going to make that big shift into hybrid meetings, right? So there's still an element of face-to-face, but they're balancing to help with the cost because the small businesses and the startups. Do you think hybrid will take on and overtake face-to-face, or is that something where in the grand scheme of things, it's all the pie, right? We're all meeting, it's worth meeting about. And this gives us just another way to connect with people, knowing that face-to-face will primarily be the still best way to do it.
Yeah, I think hybrid has a place in the meetings industry, and it's certainly beneficial, particularly if you're like a large company, say Apple or Google or somebody like that, and they want to get the word out across the board to all their employees around the world. Well, the hybrid meeting is the best way to do that, because then everyone hears the same thing at the same time. And then, the face-to-face meetings are more important because that's where you get a deeper level of understanding. Cathy was mentioning, the face-to-face is more important for building relationships. And the one thing I was thinking of when she said that was that, you don't get the intonation of someone's voice in an email. So even watching it on TV or through Zoom or something like that still loses a little bit of that. And you don't have that one-on-one connection. So it's easier to rate how people are reacting to you as well. So, whether it's at a trade show or what have you, I mean, that's, having done trade shows for quite a long time, I also know that, when you found someone at a trade show that was really an ideal customer, making that connection right then and there, and then following up with them later was ideal. So it really does drive business to meet face to face as much as possible.
Yeah, and some of the research that CEIR has done, we do a lot of research asking, what heads of marketing are thinking about the trade show marketing channel. And we actually are going to be releasing a series of reports shortly. But initially, it hasn't really changed. About 41% of the marketing dollar of companies is toward the trade show channel. Now, that being said, there is, some movement within the industry itself on trade shows, but we also do a lot of studies on millennials, and the millennials, what we're finding is that they're valuing trade shows and face-to-face. In fact, there was a blogger convention that was created just for bloggers to be able to come together and meet face-to-face. So, I don't think the face-to-face is going away, and its impact on, again, the economies around the world, I think it's just evolving. And, we don't know what that is going to look like. Is it virtual reality? How is that going to impact? But I don't think that face-to-face is going to go away.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah.
So speaking of that impact, Cathy, I read a stat on the Meetings Mean Business website that it said $2.5 trillion is the impact that the events and hospitality industry has, which is just, it doesn't even feel like a real money amount when you say it. So if I'm sitting there and I'm locally thinking about wanting to talk about the impact and in the day-to-day, operations of being an event prof, how can I take this big number and then drive it down to the local level to help support the message that meetings do mean business, and here's what it looks like in the state of Texas, in the state of Rhode Island for my association?
Well, I can tell you that for the state of Texas and what we do with our advocacy day is it's focused on the number of attendees that attend. The number of exhibitors that are participating in each state, in developing, the economic impact. Certainly, the local DMOs can give what the economic impact is of events on their cities. But, if you think of it more broadly so that people can really understand, for instance, we have a DFW airport here in Dallas, which is one of the biggest airports in the world. Mm-hmm. And if you think about, the meetings industry is larger than the airline industry, and it's larger than the motion picture industry. It's, so if you compare it to all these other industries that, receive so much more attention than what meetings and events do, I think it helps provide perspective of, just what the impact is.
I love that.
I do too.
Yeah, because you never think about it, but when you start thinking about that, and that's just, thinking about it in the DFW area can be siloed, because I always think our meetings compared to like Austin with South by, but then you start to bring us all together from an industry perspective. That's fantastic. So from the
economic impact
vein as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say the economic impact on a local level is incredible, and we've talked about that at our past GMID celebrations here in Austin. And tomorrow we've got over 250 people coming to our event. So it's like, okay, that's huge. I don't know what the dollar value of each person, but it is huge, what we contribute to the economy, either through taxes or just through actual business. So it's a major thing.
So if you were talking to a small business or a small association who was looking to get started with this, how would you help them kind of build the business case for bringing meetings and events into their world based off of a lot of the benefits that you've just shared? What would you say would be like maybe the 10 to 20 words for the platform?
Well, I would turn it around and ask them what their objectives are with their companies, and then go from there. I'm not real sure I would be able to just tell them without understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Well,
and another side of that is that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I can do that myself, or, you know, I plan my kid's birthday party. And it's a lot different than that. You know, you wouldn't hire, I mean, you wouldn't try to wire your house without, you know, if you weren't an electrician. You have to hire a professional to do that. And so, you know, that's the same thing for meetings, is that you really want someone who knows what they're talking about, what they're doing, and can handle situations as they come up, which they always do. And so, you know, you really, really need to get out there and find that professional that can help you with it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about advocacy for a little bit. We had a couple of podcasts ago, we were talking a little bit about it from the very top level. What are some of the impactful advocacy campaigns you've seen come out of?
Well, I can't speak. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't speak directly to, you know, some of the advocacy campaigns, but I can tell you, I think that, you know, we're all being hit with the room poaching now, right? So, you know, we work with the American Hotel Lodging Association to help them introduce legislation into Congress. And, you know, infrastructure funding, for instance, which is something I know that U.S. Travel and when we do our own advocacy day, that we go in and we talk with our legislators about the importance of infrastructure funding. So we need all of this data that's being produced by the Meetings Mean Business campaign and the Exhibitions Mean Business campaign to be able to go in and document and justify, you know, why this is important. So this data, which is gathered, it's so critical in being able to, again, justify what it is that we go in and we talk about.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the more data that we have, the better it's going to be, I think. You know, I'm not sure about the advocacy programs either, but I see the impact that just general practices have on our industry. And, you know, we tend to stay more personal, more local, I guess you could say, within our organization. But, you know, we're here to help if we can.
I think you bring up a good point, though, is, you know, the meetings and hospitality, a lot of people think it's like the speaker on the stage, right? But it's the hotel that brings the people for that. It's the Wi-Fi that's being piped through it. It's the housekeepers who are helping turn the rooms and make sure it's there. It's the restaurants that help support us. There's all these different facets of what we're going in.
Right.
So one of the things I really love about the Meetings Mean Business website is it has the 5 acts for ways that you can kind of immediately jump into the advocacy. And would there be any other tips, not just advocacy, but for getting involved and kind of spreading the words that you would give? What would be your bit of advice to help someone get involved at the, how did you put it, Tracey, the go local?
Yeah, I mean, you know, whenever we have industry events, or even when you're talking to clients, to you know, use that information that you've got there to express how important this industry is, and it doesn't happen by itself. You know, you can't put on a meeting without a bunch of other people, and so you really need to understand that impact behind it. And I think the more knowledge we have as far as the research that CEIR is doing and Meetings Mean Business is critical to everyone who's a part of this industry.
You know, the other ways that they can get involved is, you know, virtually every chapter of MPI and not so much of IAEE, although they are involved, as well as PCMA. They all of their chapters are doing things, not just here, but also in other parts of the world. So for instance, I'm here substituting for David Dubois, who's the president and CEO, because he's in Mexico for GMID tomorrow. So we kind of split it up, but there are so many opportunities to become involved. Just, you know, find out what's happening within the local chapter of the organization that you're a member of.
Exactly.
So from a 365 perspective, we have this one day in which we celebrate the movement and we're really having this big effort. How else can we do this the other 364, 363 days out of the year to continue to spread the message?
Well, I think social media
is that where we should start? There we go.
Yeah, social media is a good way. When you see misinformation, it's, I try to do it nicely, but to correct people and say, this is really and truly what this means, or even in conversations socially, people will sometimes have misconceptions about how things work. And so I'm not a emphatic about it, but I try to say, oh, well, it's actually this, or it's actually that, or, whatever. And I try to make sure they understand the reality of the situation or their question. And so I think we have to be speakers for our industry whenever we possibly can, whatever medium that is, whether it's social media or person to person.
I think also people can, if there's a legislative alert that comes out, for something that's happening at the state level or at the federal level, write your congressman, write your state legislator, make your voice known. And I think, that's just a very simple way that you can do it. And especially if you go to the local office of your congressional representatives in DC, they're more likely to listen, I think, because of the amount of email and phone calls that the offices in Washington, D.C. get. So anytime that you see anything that you think is a concern or some risk or something like that to the events industry, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing we haven't asked that we should know about Global Meetings Industry Day?
You go, Tracey.
Oh, geez. Well, so I asked several people, what they thought the future of meetings was, and I think certainly there's a lot of technology involved, and we use technology quite a bit to get our jobs done, which is great. I'm not sure it's saving us all that much time, but it certainly seems like it. And you can push everything. I don't have a big filing cabinet anymore, so that's good. I love the internet, but I think the connecting on a human level was one of the comments that was made, and I think that's one of the key things that we have to keep talking about is that the human interaction. There's been a lot of animosity in the last few years. Where people are like, well, I don't want to be near that group, or I don't want to, whatever. It's to me it's awful. And what I love is when people get together, they start to understand each other. And it's I think Michelle Obama said it's hard to hate when you're up close. So I think that whole thing about us getting together to learn from each other. It's like when you go to a new country, for example, and you're suddenly thrown into their culture, and it's like, I don't know what it is you're eating, and they explain it to you, and you're like, oh, and you taste it, and you're like, wow, this is great, and suddenly you understand. So the same thing happens in meetings, and we have to continue doing that type of thing. So I think that's where we become the biggest advocate, is when we're talking to our customers and talking to our clients about their meetings. What is it we can do to facilitate that? And so I think meeting managers need to become event designers, where we're putting those environments together that facilitate that understanding and that learning. And then, just being sure that we understand the audience itself. And that's nothing new necessarily, but I had one of our members said that she's seeing a lot of smaller, more targeted meetings, so that the people who are attending are a little bit more of a birds of a feather, if you will, so that they have a much more condensed area of knowledge or point of reference or what have you, so that you're not having a huge meeting every single time. Sometimes having a smaller, more direct meeting would be better. So there's things like that, just understanding those kinds of things. I think it's where we're going to be headed, and I think that'll help certainly improve a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree, Tracey. And one of the things that you mentioned really struck me very close to home, and that is I have the opportunity to travel to many foreign countries. Mm-hmm. And, that's really opened my eyes. It's helped me to be a more accepting person of other people. And regardless of putting politics aside, when you sit down with people from other countries, I mean, they're just people, right? They're the same as us. They want, they want to be able to live a nice life. And I think that, again, bringing people together in those types of instances help to, I think, alleviate tensions around the world, and also possible tensions just here in the U.S. between, everything that's going on now with just the polarization of our country. So sitting down with people that you don't know and getting to know them a little bit better and putting aside the politics, I think also helps to build business, and also just helps to build relationships that are positive.
Great. So thinking of tomorrow's event, are there any particular hashtags people can be watching along social media before they take off to the Advocacy Day?
Well, I think it's hashtag GMID, right? So
I know we have GMID TX for Texas.
Yes.
So there's a few of those as well.
And I think there's GMID North Texas.
And ATX, I don't know.
The really important ones. It's not that we don't love you all, rest of the world, but Texas could be the center of the universe. But yeah, so GMID 19, I think, was another one that they might have had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then is the meetings
go ahead.
Yeah,
meetings business is another one. So yeah, that's a good one. I love that one.
Perfect.
You could also do hashtag exhibitions mean business too. So, because that's that also crosses over with what's happening tomorrow.
Right.
So now thinking something that's a little bit more fun and maybe not as on topic for what we're doing here, but completely selfishly what I want to know because of your backgrounds. What is the coolest event that you've ever planned or taken part in? It can be either one.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, so, and I try not to self-promote, but SpinCon is the annual conference that we have for our members. And oh my gosh, we have the best time. And whenever I used to do user conferences, there were a lot more people involved and a lot more breakouts and just a lot more logistics. It was a software company, so we had 300 computers in, and so there was a technical nightmare sometimes. But the conference that we have for SPIN members is what I call a love fest. And it's just, we take care of the whole person. We learned that several years ago that the whole person is involved, not just the professional side of things. And so we have 4 pillars of education called brain, body, being, and business. And certainly people come for the business sessions, but like last year after I met one of the gals in the airport, and she said, I didn't know I could take a session just for me. And I thought, wow, that's, so amazing. And so I come home and I'm rejuvenated. I'm exhausted, but I'm rejuvenated from that. And I think it has to do with the validation that we give each other. And so we all know we're kind of crazy, from this industry, because it's one of the most stressful and or top 5, I think it is. And so, just to be able to take a break from the day-to-day kind of thing is amazing. We even do a Not Your Grandma's bingo party where everyone has to wear pajamas and they come and play bingo, and we have crazy prizes like coloring books and things like that. So it sounds a little wild maybe, but it really is.
I'm over here thinking like I should get your logistics run a show for that because I'm totally stealing it from my
Y'all are welcome to come.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So it is fun, and we get down to business as well. But that's my favorite event of the year, and I love planning it and love going to it. So,
gosh, and for me, I think the most interesting event that I've ever been to it's the Consumer Electronics Show.
Oh yeah.
Which is just sensory overload, and just so big, but. Especially their Eureka Park in the Sands Expo, where they put all of their new emerging companies, new companies that are launching, is just fascinating to me because you can see what's coming. So I would probably I would probably say that. And then the other one that I went to was the ConExpo. It's the largest construction show in the world, where they actually build parking lots at the Las Vegas Convention Center that can hold the heavy cranes and things like that. And seeing what is coming in our future in terms of roads that, have sensors in them that, will guide cars in certain directions when traffic, which is something in Austin, which I'm sure you would welcome, it would guide the car, a different direction. So, just looking at that technology that's coming that I'm hoping will actually benefit us and our planet, those two shows to me were fascinating.
Yeah. Another one I like is IMEX. It's a meetings industry event, but it brings so many different countries together, cultures together. And it's just fascinating to me to walk the aisles in that show, and we're all there for one reason basically, but yet we all get along. So it's like, if this little microcosm can happen, why can't we do this in the world? That's what I always walk away thinking. But I love that show. It's again, trade shows, back to my roots, where it's just total show business.
Yeah. No, I mean, trade shows I think are a big piece of it. IMEX, where the Event Icons is actually going to live stream this year in Frankfurt after doing it last year in Vegas and then going back. And between that and CES, I think it's just a good reminder of how varied our industry can be, and a good opportunity. I get to go to shows all the time, but just like you guys were talking, like sometimes it's good for us to go to other people's events, because we're having those conversations and we start to challenge kind of the expectations, which is the whole purpose, I think, of tomorrow's industry day, not just to let the world know all this great stuff we're doing, but to make sure we're talking to each other. So the last couple of questions we have are the real standard ones that we always do for everybody. So put your thinking caps on. This is the educational part of the program for the event planners. If you had one tip you could offer to event profs, what would it be?
Oh, wow. There's so many.
Two tips.
Oh, goodness.
2 tips.
You want to go ahead, Cathy?
So I think, my biggest one is integrity, and to always be aware, because I think in this industry we are, blessed to, be able to take advantage of opportunities that others would never be able to take advantage of. But, to always question whether something is right, and whether it's something that you should be doing. Because once you lose that integrity, then your whole reputation is ruined. So that would probably be my top tip. And then, the next tip, especially for the young professionals that are coming in, step up, volunteer, get involved in, your local association, whichever one, speaks to you the most. And, just step in, just lean in, and really take advantage of the learning opportunities, the networking opportunities of the different organizations.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The volunteering part of it, or just showing up, is huge. That's where I learned this industry, was just sitting in meeting rooms with MPI members, and we were planning an event, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea that the whole decoration side of it, for example, that was just blew my mind. But the other thing I think I would offer is to really understand the goals and objectives of the event you're trying to plan. We hound on it in the CMP studies and the CMP exam, but it is truly the basis for every single decision that should be the basis for everything that's decided around an event. And so really, truly digging deep into that and understanding the whole reason behind the meeting will help you plan the best possible meeting that you can. And then that way, you're much better geared for success if you go that direction. Did we lose Lindsay?
I don't know. I hope not.
I hope not either. We could just talk more tips if it.
Yes, yes.
No. I'm just going to leave you here and you're through the podcast. That's the only problem about traveling on the road. I feel bad for every Event Icons podcast I've been on. Like, it's where in the world is Lindsay today?
Yeah.
Today she's at the Marriott, but I have a very lovely view of the waterfront here in Vancouver.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So the last thing is something where kind of going with the tips. What are some of like the new and cool resources you like to share? So this could be a book that you're currently reading, a podcast you love outside of us, of course, maybe an app that you use to organize your life that lets you be a ninja in ways that the rest of us need, or simply just a breathing or meditation technique. You know, to your earlier point about how I didn't know I could do that for me. What's something new and cool that you're using that you'd love to share?
Well, in my in my role, and certainly with what's going on just within events in general, I try to look outside my industry. I try to look at people who can bring an outside perspective. So there is someone that we had speak at our annual meeting several years ago. His name is Jeremy Gucci, and he's an innovator and a futurist, he's a young guy, but if you were to Google him, it's Gutshe. You'll see his website, and in there he has, top trends and things like that. And so I'll sit there and I'll read that, but I'm at the same time, I'm thinking, well, how does this apply to the exhibition industry? How might I be able to use this information? And then the other one is Shelley Palmer. And he has a blog and he participates in CES every year. And then I also subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, which, sounds kind of boring, but there's, I kind of keep an eye on the markets and what's going on there, and certainly with trade, because that impacts the exhibition industry. And then there's another one, it's the ITR economics blog. I find that that blog kind of puts it in a vernacular that even I, as a layperson, not an economist, can understand, and it helps provide that type of perspective.
That was the ITR. Could you say that address again?
ITR economics.
Okay. How about you, Tracey? What are the things you're doing?
Well, I do try to keep up with the news just to understand, what's going on. But I think a lot of us get stressed out by the news. So it certainly does for me. And so I have to be careful. I have to limit my time with that because I get so wrapped up in it. And but I also think, there's a lot of books out there that are really good right now. There's one that I just did about story branding that I think is really helpful to help each person understand their own story. And so when you understand your story, you can talk about that better to potential clients or bosses or just other stakeholders. And I think it's important that we understand those things about ourselves and how that plays in the market. Anything that gets us to calm down for a little bit, just take a breath and what have you. I'm really into that type of thing now too. The apps like Calm, and there's one that reads you bedtime stories. Apparently, I haven't really tried that one, but yeah.
You're the first person I've heard that's actually used Calm with any success, though. So I'm glad to hear that it's working.
I don't use it regularly enough, probably. So, but I have it on my phone. If I ever need it, it's there. And, just taking a break, just saying, okay, give yourself 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. And just, get up and take a walk, go let the dog out or, whatever. It's, I think those are important things that we need to make sure we do. And I think the word for that is mindfulness. That seems to be one of the things that I'm really, it's been a big thing lately. I see a lot of organizations taking on the wellness trend, and so anything that we can do to de-stress and to just kind of center ourselves is definitely a worthwhile thing to do, and I think it makes us better workers.
So at the petting zoo this year in the upcoming meeting, that's where we can find you for all of that.
The puppy cuddling corner, yes, I'll be there.
Yeah, like see the sponsorship trade show dollars and see. at the Golden Retriever. All right, ladies. Well, this has been fantastic today. Thank you again so much for joining us. Is there anything, last parting thoughts around Global Meetings Day tomorrow that you want to share, or any resources that we need to drop in to make sure that the audience that's watching live right now, or those of us that are going to be joining us on demand, can kind of get back and get invested from an industry standpoint?
Well, one thing I would offer is that to stay active in the industry, and stay up to date on it. You can go off and just be planning meetings and doing that sort of thing. But if you're not involved in the industry, meeting people, getting to know more contacts, one of the things I absolutely love is to be able to make connections between people. So if somebody said, that's one of the things that one of our big things in SPIN is that, people will say, I need a recommendation for, literally there was one for a restaurant in Stockholm for 30 people, and 5 people answered that request. They knew it. So that type of thing, the sharing, the connections, it's just really, I think, very important and will serve you throughout your days as a meeting professional and will help you grow your business and stay active or flourish and be profitable. So.
Yeah, and I think that, for me, and one of the things that I have come to realize is that, just because you have a college degree or your CMP designation or any of the other many designations, that, that's just the beginning. And it's lifelong learning. And especially now, because of all of the new technologies that are being introduced, we all have to be familiar with what those technologies are. We don't necessarily have to know the back end of them or anything like that, but, you certainly need to be able to speak to their value and make recommendations and things like that. I think that moving into the future, the role of the meeting professional or the exhibition organizer is going to be changing, and we have to also be able to keep up with that change.
Right. I would just say be curious,
Yeah.
Kind of look for what's next.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for giving up a little bit of your time. We look for you tomorrow on the Twitter and the hashtag and the Instagram, knowing that you're going to be selfieing it out with hashtag GMID 19 or Texas to represent. Thank you to everybody who's watched us today at home. Don't forget that you can follow up with Tracey or Cathy. We'll be putting out the contact information that they'd like to. And ladies, are you on social media? Can people follow you?
Oh, yeah.
Out?
Mostly Facebook, but also Twitter, yeah.
There we go. So be sure to tweet them your selfies tomorrow to show your pride for your GMID. We record live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern at eventicons.com. So we hope to see you next week. And for Here and For Always, this is always available the following Tuesday on your favorite podcast apps. So don't forget to download us and like us and do the stars. You don't got to leave a recommendation, but hey, we love those stars. The best place to watch live, though, is here at eventicons.com, where you can see the show notes, links to all the resources, and join the chat. We want to know what you think. Thanks again, ladies. Thanks again, home.
Thanks for having us.
We'll see you later.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #EventIcons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the social conversation. Sponsored by Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.